In Episode 2, commissioners were discussed regarding nomination and eligibility. In this segment, we continue with commissioners. Within the lens of potential 34-ready legislation, John and Frank will focus on each state's ability to decide how many commissioners can be nominated and how well they represent the state they're voting for in an Article 5 convention.
There's several things to understand about the number of delegates or commissioners. One is it is up to the state to decide how many they want to send, but regardless of how many they send, each state gets one vote. So if you send
it's a
3, 5, 7, yes, that's an excellent point. It's historical precedence to that for interstate commissions. The number that you want to have, though, is an odd number, because if a delegation has to vote on an amendment which amounts to their one vote, then you don't want any ties. You don't want any ties. So 3, 5, 7, those are the usual numbers we've seen historically at any kind of a convention.
That is true. And then there will also be an individual within that organization that's in charge of the delegates.
That's a great point. They have to appoint a lead delegate.
That's right.
Now, here's where it gets complicated, and it does have a significant impact on 5 versus 7 or maybe even 9, and that is, what kind of representation does the state legislature want to have in those delegates?
Absolutely.
Do you want to make sure that the political parties are adequately represented, or are there other key criteria, key constituencies that you want to make sure are represented in this delegation? So what are your thoughts? What's your experience in looking at other states in that regard?
I personally prefer a broad representation. The broader your representation, the more conversation you can have in this particular environment. And the more people that bring that conversation together, the better the outcome is going to be. Right? That proposed amendment is going to be solid if you've got different people with different mindsets talking about the same. So, but in reality, it's going to be based upon Democrat, Republican, the legislature makeup, I believe.
Right.
But it can be fair too, right? Because there's a cost component to this, right? The more delegates you send, the more it's going to cost the state.
That's a
good point. The state covers the cost of those delegates, and we don't know how long this thing's going to take.
Right.
So the legislature wants to be very mindful about the number that they actually send to the convention.
Right. And related to that, it gets to be a significant challenge when you start trying to answer, well, who should they represent? Right. One of the arguments, not arguments, but one of the propositions I've debated has been they should really represent the voter registration in that state. Colorado is a perfect example. The highest voter registration we have is unaffiliated.
That's true.
It's half of our registered voters. And then you have Republican, Democrat, and several minority parties, and there's an argument to be made, they should be properly, proportionately represented in this delegation. That's one proposition.
That would be nice, but honestly, the actual delegate or the commissioner actually represents the legislature.
That's an excellent point. That's right.
The legislature is the principal, right?
They're the boss.
The commissioner is the agent, right?
Yep.
So they represent the actual legislature itself.
Right.
And that commission that they receive. That's also very critical.
Right. And hence a lot of the model the legislation adopted by other states that have passed a resolution, we've seen the House, the State House, the State Senate, the Speaker of the House, and even in some cases the governor and also the
President of the Senate,
the nominating commission. They have one delegate that they're permitted to basically recommend and alternate.
Absolutely.
And so you can expect that that's going to have a significant influence on the whole process.
Yes, sir.
We can all imagine the scenarios, but only the state legislature can make these decisions. In Colorado, state senators and state representatives are term limited. When our Article 5 convention finally becomes reality, everyone will want the power and authority to make these 34-ready decisions, especially in regards to the commissioner nomination and making the process nonpartisan. If our current legislature avoids 34-ready, they forfeit the influence that they had in their grasp but lost, because their window of opportunity closed. That decision will then go to the elected legislature of that historic time.